Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh. So today's class, Swamiji started off by talking about a Sakhi of Guru Nanak Dev Ji's, where Guru Nanak Dev Ji would wake up at night time and chant the praises of Vaheguru, and their mother would come into their room and say, "Oh Nanak, everybody's fallen asleep. You're still awake. What are you singing about?" And then Guru Nanak Dev Ji used to respond to their mother saying, "Mother, Akha Jiva Visra Mar Jaun. I only stay alive if I remember God. But if I forget them, and if I don't chant their praises, I feel like I'm dying. I have to do this." Then Swamiji went on to discussing some of the inner depths of Guru Nanak Dev Ji through this Bani called Sidh Gosht. The first question that the Siddhs ask Guru Nanak Dev Ji, actually, I'll just recite the first 4 questions that the Siddhs ask. Kavan tumhe kya nao tumhara, kaun marg kaun suao. So there's 4 questions in this pankti. There's about 70 questions in the entirety of Sidh Gosht. And like Swamiji was saying, pretty much all of our life's questions are within these 70. But specifically for a seeker, the first few questions, if they get answered for a seeker, not merely through words, but through experience, that is enough. And the end is, those first few questions have the answers to the most fundamental questions of the seeker. So the first question is, who are you? Kavan tumhe. Second question is, kya nao tumhara? What is your name? Number 3 is, kaun marg? What is your path? And kaun suao? What is your purpose? These are the first 4 questions that the Siddhs asked. And look at with how much respect the Siddhs actually ask this question. They follow up saying, Sach kaho ardas hamari, how sant jana bal jaun. They're saying that we're doing an ardas to you, and we are a sacrifice to the saints. So they're referring to Guru Nanak Dev Ji as a sant who has come, and they want to know about them more, but they're asking so humbly. So this is a good thing, that they're even paying respect, and they're saying that we're humbly asking you these questions. Then they go on to ask a few more questions, which we'll cover the next class. Now, this very first question, Kavan tumhe, sounds like a question that, if you met somebody and you didn't know them, you would say, "Oh, who are you?" But the Siddhs, the way that they're asking is not the same as an average person would ask, because you have to remember that the Siddhs themselves are doing tapasya. They themselves are exploring their inner dimensions. So when they're seeing, especially a sant coming to meet them in the difficult terrain that they're in, they know that the person that has come to see them is also somebody who's of a high level. So this question, though on face value seems like a very simple question, there's actually a lot of stuff, a lot of depth to the way that the Siddhs are asking. And the Siddhs are actually going to check. We want to know how Nanak is going to answer this question, actually. This question, who are you, is a milestone question in a seeker's journey. And until this question happens to you, there isn't refinement in your journey yet. Because you might ask a lot of other questions. Who is God? Who is this? Who is outside? How does this work? Blah, blah, blah. But all of those questions are really still questions of the periphery. They're not really questions about the center. If you answer those questions, it might help you, but they're only helpful if they get you to the center. Answering questions about the periphery will not act, and you stay at the periphery, they will not be helpful to a seeker. So this question, who are you? Swamiji shared a wonderful sakhi of a person named Narendra, who we now know and they're famous as Vivekanand Ji. Narendra Ji, when they were a seeker, they had this question within themselves, and they were told that across the Ganga River, there's somebody sitting in a hut. They're a saint. You can go ask them this question. So what Narendra does was, at nighttime, he swam across the Ganga River, and in a hut, there was a saint sitting there, and he knocks on the door, and the saint from inside asks, "Who is it? Kaun hai? Tum kaun ho?" And Narinder asks, "This is the question I'm here to get answered. Yahi mera sawal hai. Yahi main janne aaya hu. I've come to know who am I." And the sons sitting inside the hut, Swami Ram Tirth Paramhans, they were a must type of saint. They had done many different types of sadhanas. So one of the special things about Swami Ramakrishna Paramahans was the way that they achieved enlightenment wasn't just one pathway. They didn't just do one type of technique and they got there. What they did was they took a technique and they got to the very height of the technique. Then they did another technique and got to the very height. So they actually, even after they were enlightened, they continued to practice different techniques, and they got to the heights of these techniques. And so they open the door and they say, "Do you want to know this question right now, or do you want to wait a little bit?" It's almost like the first test that a saint gives you. Do you want the answer to this question right now or after? And Vivekanand, he goes quiet and closes his eyes, and in his posture, it reveals that he wants to know the answer right now. The Swami Ramakrishna Paramhans, they take their toe and they put it on his Anhat Chakra, or his heart, you can say, and Vivekanand goes into a complete silence and a sunya state for 7 days. Now, it's a state before Samadhi. Like Swamiji was saying that before the sunrise happens, the sky goes red. It's that type of state. But because it's so close to the final enlightenment stage, it gives you a taste of what it feels like. After that, Vivekanand remained with Swami Ramakrishna Paramhans, and they did seva and they did sadhana, and then eventually they went on to becoming enlightened as well. But their journey, I'm sure they had a journey even before this, even before meeting the saint. But the milestone, the keystone of their journey was they had this thirst. Who the heck am I? This is a question that we need to have within us. Main kaun hu, like Swamiji said, this is not a question that you can answer in words. You can give indications, you can give clues, you can give techniques, but in reality, this question can only be answered in experience. Because if you think about it, if you ask the question, "Who am I?" and somebody else tells you you're this, this, and this, how is that helpful for you if you haven't experienced that yourself? Someone can tell you you're Atma, but you live your life thinking that you're the body. That means the only way that the answer is going to work for you is if you also experience it. So what a Satguru does is they give you a path, they give you techniques, they give you indications, but you have to walk that path yourself. Typically in our world, if someone asks us, "Who are you?" we say something along the lines of, "Oh, I'm a Hindu," or "I'm a Sikh," "I'm a Christian," "I'm a woman," "I'm a man." Typically you'll say your name, "I'm a so-and-so," "I'm poor," "I'm rich." And these are all things that the world has taught us to say. But the saints tell us, the avatars tell us, this is not who you are. Even in your dreams, you don't retain the personality that you have in the awakened state. This current version of you, it doesn't even go with you to your dream state. It changes by the time it gets there. And then the dream state and the awakening state don't even go to the deep sleep state. So then how will any of these identities that the world has given you go into samadhi? That is a state that's even deeper and more subtle than deep sleep. So if it doesn't even go with you in the dream state, how can this actually be your real identity? And then Swamiji told a Sakhi, which I absolutely love this Sakhi, and it actually reveals the genius of Janak and how much of a wonderful and advanced seeker he was, even as a king. Janak sits on his throne one day, and he's just sitting there. He falls into a little nap, and he has a dream. The dream is very vivid. His dream is that he is a hostage by someone who's really rich, and this person has just bought him like you buy slaves, and they're dragging him across the desert, and he's asking for water, but they're not giving him water. He's asking for food, but they're not giving him food. And he actually ends up dying because of that thirst and hunger. And when he screams at death, he wakes up on his throne. He realizes, oh, I was just dreaming. But then Janak has this realization. He says, wait, was that the dream or is this the dream? Was my dying, was that actually happening to me? And then I screamed and now I'm dreaming? Or is this actually the real state and I was just dreaming? He couldn't tell the difference between his dream state and his awakened state. And this is a very true type of observation to have. When you're in your dream state, you can't tell that that's dreaming. But now that you're in this state, can you tell that this is not also a dream? What if this is also your dreaming and there's another state that you have to wake up into? Sorry. So then he asks his guru, he says, I'm really confused. He goes to his guru, whose name is Ashtavakarji, by the way, is only 12 years old. So just think of Janak as the Jigyasu, who is surrendering. He's a king. He's got everybody under his control. And he goes to someone who's 12 years old to seek help about his adhyatmic marak. And he asks, I don't know who I am. Am I the beggar from the dream I just had? Was that the thing that was real? Or am I actually a king? Or am I not actually a king because this is also a dream? Who am I? And when he asks this question, Ashtavakar says, you're neither of these. You're not the person that you were in the dream. And you're also not the person in this awakened state because this is also a dream. And then Janak realizes that I have something to realize. I'm not. And actually, it's very interesting because even in the small sutras that Ashtavakar gives Janak applies them really fast. See, he's a king, and Ashtavakar says, you're not this person that you think you are, even in this state. It doesn't take Janak a long time to say, oh, you know what, okay, I'll just listen to you, but, I still really want to be a king. Janak says, oh, that means I'm not a king, period. All of the ego that a person can hold as a king, it drops quickly because he really believes his guru. His guru says it once, and Janak says, okay, then this is not what I am. He doesn't beat around the bush. But then Ashtavakar says, I will tell you who you are. And that is exactly what a guru has to do, right? Swamiji then went on to say something very unique here. When the Sidhs asked Guru Nanak Dev Ji this question, Gavan Tume, Guru Nanak Dev Ji posed a question back and says, the question that you're asking me, do you know the answer to this question for yourself? They ask the Sidhs back. And then the Sidhs, that's why they respond humbly saying, we don't know. That's why we humbly ask you. This question, Main Kaun Hoon, it can actually become a type of meditation. There is a saint from south of India. His name was Raman Maharshi. And for 40 years, he went around asking this question, Main Kaun Hoon, Main Kaun Hoon. He'll ask the trees, he'll ask the mountains, he'll contemplate it, he'll ask his hut, he'll touch different things, Main Kaun Hoon, Main Kaun Hoon. Who am I? Who am I? And this became so meditative for him that it was that question itself that helped him drown into himself. So this is actually something like Swamiji actually does this as a meditation with their people that come to them, seekers. And what you basically do is everything that you see around, in a very conscious way, you ask, who am I? As if you're asking them for the answer. Who am I? Who am I? You ask the stars, you ask the sky, you ask everything around you. So that this produces a thirst for self or inner exploration, because we sit here in front of the laptop, but do we even care who we are? Or are we sitting here? Why are we sitting here? What's actually the mile of the keystone? Have we gotten it as a seeker? So using this meditation, it actually produces thirst for inner exploration and self-exploration to start. The questions Raman Maharshi asks are, am I the body? Am I the thoughts? Am I the breath? Am I the energies? Am I the senses? Am I the dreaming? Am I the sleep? Am I the awakened? And what a Satguru does is they help a seeker understand, but more so experience that they're not any of these things. And the Satguru also, when the experiencer understands that they're none of these things that are very outward and very much the periphery, when the seeker experiences who they are is the exact same moment that they merge with God. And they actually become Brahm, and then they dance with ecstasy. There is no freedom like the freedom of Brahm. So ask yourself this question. You must ask yourself this question, because until you do, there really isn't going to be a search, if you want to call it. First, and sometimes in the Bhakti Marg or in the Dharmic Kshetras, we ask the question, who is God? But still, when we ask this question, who is God, it's still asking something of another thing. It's not self-transformational. It's just getting to know what is this concept that we call God. It hasn't really come to you yet, so it's not really as transformational of a question as it possibly could be. But then, if you read Bhagat Pipa Ji's Vani, they say, Jo Brahmande soi pinde, jo khoja so pave, Pipa pranave param tat hai satguru hoy lakhave. That what's in the universe is within you, but in order to find it, you must search. Jo khoja so pave. Pipa pranave param tat hai satguru hoy lakhave. And within you, you have the param tattva, and that is experienced through the Satguru. Swamiji here made a very valuable statement. They said that the Guru shows the path, but that you must walk on it. This is actually very important. The Guru shows you the path, but then you can't become lazy and just say, well, now I have a Guru, great, wonderful, they showed me the path. You have to walk on it yourself. Sometimes we think if I just sit near a Guru, whatever they're experiencing, their samadhi, they'll just give it to me in like a magical wand, and then I can experience it. Everything's done. But that's not how it works. You have to go through the same intensity that the Guru went through. The Guru, before they became enlightened, they asked themselves this question. There was an immense amount of self-transformation that happened. You have to walk that same pathway. So Swamiji here, they said to us, increase your own self-will power and start your own inner search. You have to have self-responsibility and self-integrity on this search, on this pathway. Just because the Guru tells you do the sadhana, but then you don't do the sadhana, and then you keep coming back, the Guru will know there's not much progress being made, but that part doesn't even matter. For you individually, there's no progress being made. That's a problem. So you must commit to your own individual sadhanas, and you have to give your own self accountability. You can't depend on somebody else to always tell you, oh, you didn't do your sadhana. Oh, you didn't do your sadhana. That's how many times can you get spoon fed like that? What about you individually? Do you not want to do your sadhana? Do you not want to meet Vaheguru? Why are you doing this? Is there a problem somewhere? Is the thirst not strong enough? Why is there a problem in getting that discipline together? You have to check. There's something wrong with me. You can't always depend on somebody else doing it for you. You have to commit to your own integrity and self-accountability. So now we'll go on to the answers to these questions. To the first one, Kavan tume kya now tumhara, the first two perhaps actually, they come on the following stanza, you can say. Kat kat bais nirantar rahi hai. Guru Nanak Dev Ji answers the question of who am I and what is my name? Kat kat bais nirantar rahi hai. There's something that sits within all beings. And that consciousness, check yourself right now actually. There's something within you, a consciousness that allows the eyes to see. You can even do this as an exercise. You're seeing right now, right? So come into your eyes and just watch. You're looking at your webcams or your laptops or your screen, whatever. Become extremely aware of the fact that you're seeing the webcam or that you're seeing the screen. Now, there's something that's alive here. There's a consciousness that's allowing you to know information. Remove that consciousness and keep the eyes open. Do you think the eyes can continue to see? You see how there's an awareness and a hosh, even when you're seeing things? Remove that awareness. Here, I'll pose it even more specifically. When you're watching something or you're looking, you can do this as an exercise right now. When you're seeing what you're seeing, are you aware that you're seeing it? Now remove that awareness. There's no more seeing happening. Obviously, you can't remove the awareness, therefore you'll continue to see. But that awareness that you're having, that there's something being seen, that is the Jidabhas. For now, we'll say that that is an Ansha Vaheguru. If you remove that, there's no seeing. The eyes can't see. When you hear things, for example, you're hearing my voice, become aware of the voice. There is an awareness that is telling you that something is being heard, something is being said. If that awareness gets taken away, there's nothing to be heard. The ears can't hear anymore. So the consciousness that allows the eyes to see, the ears to hear, the consciousness that allows the legs to walk, to have movement in the tongue, to have movement in the arms, the consciousness that allows breathing to happen, energy exchange to happen, the consciousness that allows you to produce a thought and for that thought to then go away. Watch your thoughts, and you'll see that there's even a more fundamental awareness that is required for the thought to even be produced and to collapse. This Sakshi, or this witnesser, sits in every single being. That is God. This very fundamental consciousness that never dies. It's on right now in the awakening state. It remains on when you're dreaming. Think about it. How do you even manage to see your dream? Your eyes are closed. Your mind is functioning. That's fine. But the mind is producing this. How are you seeing it? Is there not an awareness there that is telling you that there is a dream going on? You're picking up all of that. Same thing as we do with the eyes, but now we're doing it with a more subtle eye, if you want to call it. Then that awareness even remains when you're sleeping deeply. Because even though there's no dream going on, even though there's no objects in front of you, you sleep so soundly, so deeply that there's nothing in front of you. But when you wake up the next day, you say, man, I slept so deeply. What thing allowed you to know that you were sleeping so deeply? Your mind was off. Your mind wasn't collecting information because there's nothing to collect. So what was telling you that you slept deeply? This fundamental awareness that we call Vaheguru, we call Allah, we call Ram, Govind, is always on. And it's on right now as well. Nanak Dev Ji saying that primal consciousness, that gat bas, is me. They answer this question. Nanak Dev Ji saying that is who I am. Gat bas nirantar rahi hai. And then they go on to saying, Swamiji here went on to saying that even though the first step is to understand that I am the awareness behind all of these things, when that happens, you realize you actually are all of these things. For example, Krishna says, I am the sun, I am the moon, I am all that is. Guru Maharaj says, Sab Gobind hai, Gobind bin nahi koi. These vachans that Krishna said, these are not coming from ego. This is a truth from the other side of the mind. Right now, we're on one side of the mind, and it seems like, how can this even be a possibility? But the place that Krishna is speaking from is on the other side of the mind, where there is no mind. This is a truth. This is not just Krishna's truth. This is also your truth. When you also experience Brahm, you will also say this, that I am the sun, I am the moon, I am all that there is. Because once you become Brahm, Brahm has no boundaries, Brahm has no limitations. You can't limitly say, oh yes, I'm the Brahm, but only in this little tiny body. I am everything. So this isn't just Krishna's truth. This is your truth too. but Krishna has experienced it. You have yet to experience it. And only a Sant or Satguru can reveal these mysteries. So, chalo, that's been answered. This answer, Swamiji actually said, they don't want you to take this as an answer at all. Swamiji doesn't want you to take all these things that have been said today and be like, that's the answer to the question that Guru Nanak Dev Ji gave. They want you to understand these are eyes. Now they want you to go see. This is not an answer for you because you're not seeing it. These so-called answers that Swamiji has given you, these are eyes. Now you have to go inside and see. The Sakshi remains interwoven and separate. Isn't that interesting? Because we always say Vaheguru sareyan de vich hai, but Vaheguru hamesha alag rehanda hai. Like two completely opposing concepts. Vaheguru is interwoven in everything, but is separate from everything. What was that? Sarb Nivasi, Sada Alepa. It's like two opposite things. But here's one way to understand what they mean. You have a necklace of pearls. The thread is in every single pearl, but the thread itself is completely separate from all the beads on the necklace. So just like that, this awakened state is a pearl or a bead. Then the dream state is another bead. Then the deep sleep state is another bead. But samadhi or Vaheguru is not another bead. It's the thread inside of every single one of the pearls. So you have to find what thing inside of me is a thread and what thing inside of me comes and goes and switches places. I am not the thing that's switching places. I am not the beads on the necklace. I am the thread, the thing that's not switching places and is staying the same even when the switches are happening. That is God. Right? And this Sakshi, you can call them Ram, Vaheguru, Allah, Govind. In reality, this Sakshi has no name. And even Guru Gobind Singh Ji alludes to this when they say Vaheguru Anam hai. But the interesting thing is, he hears and responds to any name that you give him because ultimately all tongues are him. All sounds are Vaheguru. All ears are him, all names are his, and all those that say his names are him as well. So whatever indication you use to call upon Vaheguru, it works, they hear it. But ultimately, this very base consciousness, that Sakshi, has no specific name. Now the second question the Sidhs asked Guru Nanak Dev Ji was, what's your name? And Swamiji explains this perfectly here. When somebody sees Guru Nanak Dev Ji, or the Sidhs were seeing Guru Nanak Dev Ji, what did they see? They saw a body, right? They saw a certain height and feet. They saw clothes. They saw how the face was arranged. They saw their looks. They heard their language. And whatever they outwardly saw, they called that was Nanak. That name we call Nanak. But if you ask Guru Nanak Dev Ji who they are, they will say, I'm not this stuff that I'm wearing. I'm not the name. I'm not the body. I'm not my face that you see. I'm not my height. I'm not my language. My real name isn't even Nanak. My real name, my real form is Satchidanand. And so that's the answer to that. Third question, Kaun Marg? What's your pathway? This is answered in Gurmukh Budjay Aap Patana Sache Sach Samai. And this is also answered in Challah Satgur Pai. The method or the pathway of Guru Nanak Dev Ji is through a Satguru who is enlightened themselves. I understand through surrender to a Satguru, I experience the self as Brahm. My pathway is that of Advait. Advait is the pathway because Guru Nanak Dev Ji then themselves explains in Gurbani, Atam Ram, Ram hai Atam. Now, I know this word Atma comes up a lot. We say it in Adhyatma Prakash, we use it in this Granth. I want you to understand it's just a majburi to say Atma. It's just a flaw of communication, you can call it. When you say Atma, it actually means you, me. In fact, a more closer word to Atma, a better word actually is Appa. And Appa is used many times by the Guru Sahibans as well. Me. Who I, like, feel yourself, me. That is Atma. There is no extra thing that's sitting inside of you that we're referring to as Atma. It's you. So when Mara says Atam Ram, Ram hai Atam, that the self is Ram, and Ram, Vaheguru, is the self. This is where you get the pathway of Advait. Otherwise, there's no Advait. There's always going to be you and some God. But when you determine that beyond my peripheries of the body and mind, who I am is Ram, then you establish Advait. And Guru Nanak Dev Ji says, my pathway is that of Advait, and I reach it through the grace of a Satguru. Guru Maharaj is, I would say, one of the famous lines in Guru Granth Sahib Ji is Tat Niranjan Jot Savai Sohang Pedana Koi Jio Aparampar Par Brahma Paramesar Nanak Guru Milya Soi Jio. I believe that's the full line. Tat Niranjan. They didn't give Vaheguru a name. They just said that. That thing that I'm talking about, that. Tat is Niranjan. It has no boundaries or limitations or opacities. It doesn't have Maya Mal Avidya in it. Jot Sabai. And that is the Jot in everything. Sohang Pedana Koi Jio. The second line is a Mahavak. I am that. Sohang Pedana Koi Jio. There is no difference between that Jot and who I am. And this Sohang is where Guru Maharaj then establishes that my pathway is the pathway of Advait. Then Swamiji talks about a little bit more depth about the Sakshi, about this very fundamental self. They give a unique example here. They say, if you want to know the world, let's say I want to know this pencil. I know this pencil by looking through my eyes, right? I use my eyes to see the pencil. Great. So the world is known via the eyes or the senses. We'll use this with the eyes. If I close my eyes, how do I know my eyes? If there's, a hair stuck in there, or if I know that they're hurting, or if they're functioning fully well, I know that through the mind. World, a little bit behind the world is eyes, a little bit behind the eyes is the mind. Now, how do I know what's happening within the mind? I'm feeling sad, or I'm feeling very happy, I'm feeling ecstatic, I feel like I want to dance. How are these things that are within the mind, its own composition, being known? There is a more fundamental consciousness called Sakshi Bhasya. This is not Sakshi. It's also called Chidabhas. It's not Chetan, but it's a reflected version of Chetan. It's a reflected version of the witnesser. For example, at nighttime, when there's a clear pond and the moon is up, when you look in the pond, do you see a moon in there? And does that moon that's reflecting in the pond have some light that it's giving off? It gives off light. Even though the light's not its own, there is still light emanating from the pond because it's reflecting the moon. That is what we call Chidabhas, the reflected moon. The reflected Chetan, the reflected consciousness is what we call Chidabhas or Sakshi Bhasya. That's how you're knowing how you feel, how your mind is feeling. Especially at the level of feeling, that's Sakshi Bhasya. But then what is the thing that knows even the reflected moon? The real moon. And the real moon is God. That's Chetan, that's Sakshi. Basically in sadhana, we can get to Chidabhas or Sakshi Bhasya, but to become the moon, to get to only Sakshi, you have to fully surrender. Another way to think of what the Chidabhas is, think of the Chidabhas as a consciousness that still has a barrier. So what do you do if you want to experience pure consciousness? You have to get rid of the barrier. To go from Chidabhas to Shuddha Sakshi requires complete let go, complete surrender. In your sadhana, what this actually translates into is complete relaxation. When you do sadhana, any type of sadhana, the perfect ratio is to be fully awake, but to be fully relaxed at the same time. You don't want to be relaxed if you fall asleep, but you don't want to be so awake and so present that there are some type of, like some type of force being there. Because the force is showing that there's no relaxation. There's a boundary still happening. For example, when you're in dhyan and you're focusing so hard, that focusing so hard is becoming a boundary. So what you want to do in dhyan is fully alive, fully awake, but completely surrendered, completely relaxed, to the point that you don't even care what happens in the sadhana. You don't care if you experience Ananda or not. You don't care if the sadhana produced some magical event for you or not. In fact, you're just thankful that you're doing sadhana. You have no additional expectation. That's the ratio that you want to go into in your meditations. And then the final question was, Kya Swal? What's your purpose? So it's asking Guru Nanak Dev Ji. Swal means purpose. And they say here, my purpose is Sache Sach Samay. Gurmukh Buddha Aap Pachana. Aapanu Pachanana is my pathway. And then what do I get out of this? Sache Sach Samay. I asked this question to the people that come to the live classes. I said, why do you want to meet God in the first place? What's the point? Aren't you happy the way you are right now? Why even bother meeting a God? Let God do their thing. You do your thing. And the answer was, I'm tired of the mind. I'm not happy. I want to be happy. I want joy. I don't want to be in pain anymore. Around these types of lines, everybody's answers were. So if we summarize everybody's answer, it's basically, I don't want any more pain. And I want a type of anand that lasts forever. It feels fresh all the time. It's ecstatic. I want to feel alive. So the answer that we give to what the purpose of reading Gurbani, to meeting a Satguru, to even going on a spiritual process, to even meeting God, so-called, is actually for all anxieties, all boundaries, all things that stop you from your purest emancipation to go away, and for you to be in a state where you finally feel alive. You finally feel ecstatic, not even peaceful, but ecstatic. And that state is your individual state. You're not relying on some circumstance to create it for you, but it's coming from within. You have access to it all the time. Nothing changes it. There is no fear of losing it. And it is your permanent state. All my pains go away, and I'm enveloped with joy. This is why we want to meet God. This is the purpose. And this is a state that finally Swamiji gave one last Sakhi of Vaskal and Vasmuni. Vaskal or Shish asks the question to their guru. Vasmuni says, who am I? And Vasmuni doesn't respond. They're completely silent. Vaskal says perhaps they didn't hear it. They ask again, who am I? Silence. They ask again, who am I? Silence. The fourth time he asks, Vasmuni says, I'm telling you the answer. You're just not listening. The answer is in silence. Antar sunnang, bahar sunnang, tripavan sunnama sunnang, chauthe nar ko jo nar jane, tisko papana punnang. When we come to class, we get so much information, but still this information is collected from the outside. What needs to happen is you have to take this, apply this and you have to go into the state of silence. Don't talk about silence. When you're doing meditation, don't talk about what's happening. Don't describe it. Just go there. Here, sometimes we laugh within our class. Sometimes we feel like we're slipping in our meditations and we're feeling like a let go. And then the mind comes back and says, oh, you're finally feeling a let go. Oh, it's happening, it's happening, it's happening. And then it goes away. So whatever happens in your meditation, good or bad, don't describe it. Don't judge it. Don't talk about it at all. Don't even think about it. Just let it happen, period. Happens, great. Doesn't happen, also great. That's the approach you should take to meditation. And then finally, Swamiji said that the Guru produces Anand, has access to the ocean of Anand, and then they give that Anand out, right? Anand pe ameri mai, Satguru mein paya. So when you come to these classes, come with a smile. Don't be so sad. Don't be serious. Why so serious? Here, we're producing Anand. We're giving Anand so that you can experience Anand. So stay happy. Do the sadhana. Apply it within yourself. And become Anand. So that's all I have for you today. Please forgive me for my mistakes. Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh.